Welcome to episode 102 of the Family Answer Man podcast. Today we're talking about what it means to be a dad who leads in today's world from a biblical worldview on the Family Answer Man podcast. I'm here with Dr. Mark Crosby. He is a pastor, educator, marriage and family therapist, and he is the resident expert here on the Family Answer Man. Now, the Family Answer Man is not a therapy session. We're not able to give specific advice to your situations, but we do believe that spiritual and mental health are very serious issues. I want to encourage you to seek professional counsel for your questions. But before we jump in today, I want to encourage you to go ahead and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of the Family Answer Man. And if you're listening via podcast, if you'll rate and review us, that helps us out a lot. And you can always invite your friends and your family to join you on this journey of building stronger, healthier, happier families. Well, Dr. Mark, good to be here with you today.
Yes.
Great topic for today.
Yes.
What it means to be a dad who leads in today's world.
Yes, indeed.
Do you feel like that is, I know it's necessary and it's needed and leadership's critical in
Right.
Just about every situation. Do you feel like it's harder for dads to lead now than it maybe ever has been before?
I think what's going on is that leadership, for some reason, has taken a very negative connotation.
Okay.
Meaning that for a lot of people, they see leaders as those who are tyrannical, those who are extremely, excessively aggressive, perhaps, those who have the my way or the highway mentality, those who rule with an iron fist, so to speak. And because of that, leadership has taken this negative connotation for a lot of people. And so whenever a dad, wants to be the leader or says to his family, hey, I want to lead or whatever, sometimes that's taken in a negative context.
Yeah.
And so leadership, I think, is important. As you said earlier, it's important in every realm of life: school, business, church, family, government, of course. But the problem is, I think a lot of people aren't quite sure what that means to be a leader. Or they may say, I want my pastor to be a leader. Well, what are you saying exactly? What are you meaning? I want my, principal to be the leader. I want my, dad or my husband to be the leader of the family. Well, what are you saying exactly when you say that? And I think a lot of people aren't quite sure what definition they are referencing or referring to when they say, I want my pastor, my principal, my dad, my husband to be the leader of the family. I want the manager of the store to be the leader of our corporation. What are they saying when they say that? And I think once you understand what real leadership is about, what I would argue biblical leadership is about, then you have at least a definition and framework from which to work out of. So I think that's why I think leadership today is so confusing and it's so misunderstood.
That is a great way to get into our topic.
Yes.
The question for today. And if you have a question that you want answered, we would love to do that. You can email us, familyanswerman@liveoak.church, familyanswerman@liveoak.church. We'll get those questions to us. The question comes in today and it says this. It says, what does it mean for a dad to be, quote, the leader? It seems to create a lot of conflict and confusion in the home. My dad claimed to be a leader, but he was a tyrant, abusive, and expected absolute discipline. So can you give some insight of what being a godly father and leader means?
Wow. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, have a bad taste in their mouth, so to speak, when it comes to leadership. But I think one of the first things we need to be mindful of, and dads, I hope you're listening, and so if you're able to turn up the volume a little bit while you're listening, you may want to pay attention. But leaders influence. Mm-hmm. I think that's the first trait and characteristic of a good leader, and that is they influence. They influence the thoughts, the actions, the behaviors of other people, whether it be those they work for or work with, I should say, or who work for them, those in their family, pastors of churches. I think one of the key notes is they are influencing the thoughts and actions of those that need them, look up to them, expect from them certain roles to be fulfilled. But leaders influence. And I think we have lost that definition in a lot of areas. And leaders influence thoughts and actions of others, and they help others to see and understand things that lead to success. In other words, they give them ideas, they give them tools, they give them opportunities to do things that are positive and helps that person, as well as the church or the company or the organization or the family, to become successful.
Yeah, that reminds me of a quote that Tom Landry, legendary Dallas Cowboys football coach, said, leadership's getting someone to do what they don't want to do to achieve what they want to achieve.
Exactly. Yeah. And so leaders basically help to equip, they help to influence, they help to motivate, they give opportunity, they help to maybe train in certain areas. But leaders, again, influence thoughts and actions of others. I think that's the key basic definition. That's number one. Number two, leaders believe and know what is right, responsible, and realistic. In other words, they have an idea as to what is right for our company, what is right for our church, what is right for our family, what is the responsible thing to do in this situation, what is realistic. I know a lot of churches, for example, who say, yeah, we live, out in the middle of nowhere, but we expect to have, 10,000 people in church on Sunday. Well, that's a nice goal. I don't want to discount that goal.
Right.
And it may happen, with God, all things are possible.
That's right.
However, at least initially ask yourself, how realistic is this?
Right.
And so a leader will begin to help a church, an organization, a company, a family, begin to break down what is right. What is the responsible thing to do here and what is realistic? In other words, what works and brings success? What works for us and what brings success? And the leader themselves, also continue to learn and grow. You quoted Tom Landry a while ago. Well, Sam Walton, another
pretty great leader.
Pretty great leader. In 1962, as he was beginning his Walmart enterprise, if you will, what he would do is he would look to see what all the other successful stores were doing that were doing well, that were successful. He looked and examined what the stores that did not make it, what they did not do well. And he began to grow and learn and begin to kind of narrow down for himself what he wanted to see in his company, in his business, in his store, and became, perhaps the greatest retail chain, in the world.
Right.
And so, and he's competing during that time against other very powerful retail markets or retail companies, I should say. And but Sam Walton did that. He would learn and grow, and he learned what worked. He learned what brought success, and then he incorporated that in his leadership skill. And so he again helps people, companies, those that are working for him, to know what is right, what is responsible, what is realistic, and what works and what brings success. And he brings that into the company, brings that into his leadership style. And so I think that's very important to note. And I think dads, do the same thing. Dads, know what works for your family. Know that maybe what works for your son may not work for your daughter.
Right.
Know what works for your oldest son may not work for your youngest son. Know what works, know what is realistic, know what brings success, and pull that out of them. Thirdly, a good leader will allow their emotional muscle to give them strength. In other words, emotion is what, or passion, maybe is another word for it, is what gives you sometimes strength to do what you never thought you could do or would do. Maybe taking good and positive and healthy risks. That may be an oxymoron for some people, but to maximize your resources. Because when you are invested emotionally in something, when it's a passion of yours, when you want to see this succeed, and when it does succeed, you are emotionally, excited and connected to what's going on. That is, again, strengthening your emotional muscle. Again, so your emotional muscle, just a little sidebar, it helps you to, again, helps others to release, if you will, their potential as well. But when you begin to pour your life into them, and when a person begins to see that, hey, they really care about my success, as a son or daughter, if they have this great success to be a musician or to be an artist or to be an athlete or to be, a mechanic or to be someone good in math, you pull that out of them. And you help them to reach that potential. And you recognize and realize that by you pulling that out of them, they are now going to be successful, and that potential doesn't remain dormant.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you've talked about that in the past. You're not putting your things into a child. You're helping pull out what's already there.
Exactly. As one person used to put it, dads, you're to be the fertilizer that helps the child to grow into their fullest potential.
There you go.
And you're to be that fertilizer. You're to help them to have the resources they need, to have the nourishment they need, if you will, emotionally and mentally and academically, to again have that potential be fulfilled in their life. Also, you help your children with success But again, using what they have. Again, not every child has a really powerful mathematical mind. Not every child has a real strong musical mind. Not every child is going to be great in athletics, but every child has something.
Right.
And I think what a good leader does, not only in the church world, in the corporate world, but also in the family, what a good leader will do is they will look to see what does their child, what does their spouse even bring to the table. And so, again, this is a biblical way of putting it, but God asked Moses, he says, Moses, what do you have? And Moses had a staff.
Right.
And he says, okay, we're going to use that staff and do something amazing. And I think that is a great, again, way of looking at your children and looking maybe at your spouse or even yourself. What do you have? Because not everybody has everything.
Right.
In other words, not everybody is going to be able to sing or dance or play or or do athletics or do you know mathematical equations in their head or whatever it may be. But everybody has something.
Yeah.
And when you recognize that what you have is legitimate, what you have is meaningful, what you have can make a difference, and what you have is yours that God has given you, and you take what you have and you give it to God, or you give it to the church, and you give it to the business, or you give it to the family, wherever it may be, amazing things happen.
Yeah, it's such a powerful thing when you realize your purpose and you start to actualize your potential.
Exactly. So again, another case in point and story that we're all familiar with was Jesus feeding the 5,000. He looks around and there's a kid who brought his lunch.
He's got his little Lunchable, right?
He's got his Lunchable with his fish and his bread, and Mom packed it that morning. But that's what he had, and he gave it. To Jesus, and Jesus took it, and we know the story, and amazing things happen with it. So again, so dads, when you ask your sons, your daughters, basically, what do you have? That's powerful, and that's important. And whatever it is they have, if you begin to help them to use that to the glory of God, help them to use that, to find that success, help them to use that to find that key sense of motivation, that key sense of self-worth, that key sense of self-esteem. That's powerful. That's important. And dads, you're the one that can do that. A good leader also knows when to pull back and when to lean in. Again, we've always talked about the story of the prodigal son's father.
Yes.
And we all love that story. And there's just so many, many, many takeaways and themes from that story. But one of them, from the father's perspective, is he knew when to pull back. That son got off into all kind of problems. We know the story, wanted to eat pig slop. He doesn't bail him out, doesn't rescue him, doesn't enable him, doesn't send him more money, doesn't, send his chief, hired hand to go find him and bring him back home.
Right.
Doesn't send him, horses and chariots. He just waits.
Yeah.
So he pulls back.
And that's a really difficult aspect of leadership.
It really is. It really is. But sometimes when it comes to your kids, sometimes you need to let them figure it out. Sometimes you need to let them kind of do it themselves for a little bit. I've had parents say to me time and time again, "Hey, my two sons are in the back room. They're fighting, whatever. And what should I do?" And I said, "Well, let them fight. let them, get it out. Yeah. Let them deal with it, and then they will begin to figure it out, make up, and move on." Yeah. But if you go in there, whatever, there's going to be this hidden hostility, and there's going to be blaming, and he did, and she did, and they always, and they never, and whatever. Sometimes you need to know when to pull back. Sometimes when to lean in. So again, back to the prodigal son's father, he pulls back. He let the prodigal son figure it out. He let him stand knee deep in pig slop. He let him hunger for pig slop. And then when the prodigal son came back in humility, he leaned in. And that's so powerful. When he saw the son coming back, with humble, beliefs and humble attitude and humble desire, then the father leaned in. And, a lot of people say, well, maybe the prodigal son's father should have, sent him, a chariot with lots of food. That would have been grace. No, that wouldn't have been grace. I think that would have been a way of enabling.
Yeah,
because he wasn't ready.
So unpack that, because a lot of people see what really is enabling. They see it as giving grace.
Yeah, and there's a fine line. Many will argue there is a fine line.
Right.
And what was, I think, where grace comes in is when the human heart is humble. And when the human heart's humble, they can receive that grace.
Yeah.
When the human heart is not humble, I will argue that a person doesn't see it as grace, a person seeing it as getting away with it.
Wow.
A person seeing it as, I was able to manipulate it. I was able to do the end around. I was able to get what I wanted finally. I was able to do all these crazy things and no consequences.
So the posture of our heart really plays a significant role.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, there is a fine line there. But I think in this story that Jesus tells, the father is where the grace comes in. He doesn't see the boy and say, "Get out of here. You're not my son. You ruined my name. You took my money. You ruined my reputation."
Kind of what the son expected.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even want you as a servant. No, he leans in and he brings him in and he accepts him. And there's a ring on his finger, the coat on his back and shoes on his feet and all these things. And then there's the party, he was dead, now he's alive. So that's grace. But again, I think a good leader knows when to pull back, when to lean in. And that begins in the family. Sometimes, when there is a discussion or dispute, between husband and wife, sometimes you have to pull back. I was telling a couple, earlier today, if you are fighting, if you're angry, no one hears each other.
Yeah.
You've got to ask yourself and ask each other, can we take a time out? Can we, just not abandon or stonewall,
right,
but can we just simply take a time out? I tell people take a hot shower, eat some ice cream, go for a walk, pray, whatever, but give yourself some time to calm down and then ask the other one with some humility in your voice, can we talk now? Can we talk now? And so that's knowing when to pull back. That's also knowing when to lean in. And dads, men, husbands, I want to encourage you that when you want to be the good leader, know when to pull back, know when to say, look, this fighting is getting us nowhere. It's drama. Why don't we take a break? Let's pull back, calm down, and then maybe later this afternoon we can lean in to what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's powerful. That's important. So that's what a good leader knows how to do. The way that dads do this as leaders is again, you have to have and create and make the time. You got to make the time for your kids. You got to make time for your spouse. And this is one of the things that I think we see here in today's world. And that is, there are so many men who want to be leaders, but they're working 90 hours a week.
Right.
And when they come home, instead of leading, they're barking orders.
Yeah.
Instead of leading, they are snapping their fingers. Instead of leading, they're being critical. Why wasn't this done? Why wasn't that done? That should have been done yesterday. Where's my memo? They're still the CEO of the company.
Right. Yeah.
And that doesn't work.
No.
When a husband says, I gave you a memo 2 days ago, how come it's not fulfilled? The wife's going to go, I'm sorry.
There's something wrong here.
I'm sorry. I don't think I'm your office manager. I'm your wife.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, but that's what happens for a lot of men. They don't know how to turn off being the CEO, being the manager, being the pastor, and coming home and being a dad. And that's huge. But the point is that a dad who leads is going to hopefully carve out some time. Yeah. And not bark orders and snap their fingers and how come this wasn't done and hey, how come the grass wasn't cut and how come y'all didn't rake the leaves, the way I said. But basically to create some time and say, what's going on? Where are we? What can we do? How are things going? Just to get a read on everybody. Because again, as we said many, many times before, children spell love T-I-M-E.
Yes.
We've said that so many times before. Yep. And the more time you can give them, the more opportunities you can give them, the more you can hear where they are, hear what's going on in their life. So many times a kid will bring home a report card and they got maybe B's and C's and maybe a D thrown in here. And the dad just kind of goes livid. And he just, says all kind of things instead of hearing what's going on.
Right.
Instead of leaning in, as we said a while ago, and asking the son or daughter, what happened here? Do we not understand, the math equations? Do we not understand, your biological science, vocabulary? Do we not understand, the opportunity, or do you not have enough time to read your books? I mean, what's going on? And if it's laziness, okay, we deal with it.
Right.
If it's a learning disorder, we deal with it that way.
Yeah.
If it's I don't have enough time, or maybe they need glasses,
Yes.
or maybe there's a behavioral
Right.
problem. I mean, but if we don't figure out what's going on, if we don't diagnose, then we don't know how to influence.
Yeah.
Because remember, a leader will always influence, and so in order to do that, that requires time. If you're going to influence your kids, if you're going to influence your coworkers, if you're going to influence your spouse, it always requires time.
And you have to be intentional with that, because time doesn't just happen upon us.
You got to carve it out.
Especially, you get older in life, you have kids, and your time is going to be consumed by everything. So you have to be very intentional.
And depending on kind of work you do, but if you're good at your job, everybody's going to want you. If you're good at your
Right.
job, everybody's going to want you. Your boss is going to want you. Your coworkers are going to want your input. The employees are going to need your input. The customer is going to want you to do the whatever. I want him to make the sale. I want him to sign the dotted line. I want him to, talk to us about the presentation. And that's good, to be wanted. But the reality is, when everybody wants you, and you don't have time for your family, you've done yourself and them and even your business a great disservice.
Yeah.
So again, as we've been saying before, time is important to influence, which also means, as we said before, help your child to discover and use their gifts. Again, that's so powerful, so important. And again, looking and seeing where they are, what they enjoy, where they're leaning, what's going on, is powerful and important. Yeah, guide them, if they're not quite sure, but help them to discover that. And then here's one I like as a dad who leads: have a blast while you're last.
Yeah, there you go.
Have a blast while you last. Have a blast while you're last with your family. In other words, I think sometimes as dads, maybe in their 30s or 40s even, they forget the power of creating that legacy.
Yeah.
They forget the power of creating that influence. They forget the power of coaching. And a verse we've used time and time again, Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child, or we could use the word coach a child in the way they should go. And as we've said in many programs before, that doesn't always mean necessarily bring them to church and they'll keep going to church, even though that's an important part. But I want to argue that coaching your child, as we've said before, is showing them what to do, demonstrating for them, rehearsing with them, practicing with them, watching how they do it, fine-tuning it, making it better, whatever that may be. That's what coaching is. And coaches have to be involved. Coaches have to be on the field, on the court. They have to have that whistle, in their mouth, stop, start. That was right. That was good. Encouraging them, in some cases, correcting them. And, in some cases, disciplining, if they're not showing up for practice, you don't play in the game or whatever. But the point is that coaches are aware, coaches are involved, coaches are constantly looking to see how to make the team and the athlete better. And that's what coaching means in Proverbs 22:6. Coach up a child in the way they should go. And when they are older, they won't depart from it. Why? Because it's so etched into their heart, their mind, their soul, their awareness. Here's one I think we need to be aware of. And so dads, if you've tuned in right now, we're talking about how to be a good leader in your home. But dads, if you didn't hear the first part of this broadcast, listen to this part. Beware of your own state of mind. Beware of your own state of mind. What does that mean? It means this: you act out of your state of mind. And we forget that sometimes.
Yeah.
Dads, if you're tired all the time, you're going to act out of that state of mind. If you're angry all the time, that's all your kids are going to see. They're going to see an angry father. I'm not angry with them. No, but you're angry.
Right.
And you're acting out of your angry state of mind. If you're negative, dads, you're going to come across negative to your children, to your spouse. Dads, if you're depressed, I understand. We said last week, depression hits dads, and that's true. But dads, what are you doing about it? You don't have to stay there.
Right.
Dads, if you're fearful, or if you're apathetic, these are states of mind that you're going to act out of. And if you're not careful, that's all they're going to see. And that's what you're going to pass on to your kids.
Right. That becomes your legacy.
That becomes your legacy. So dads, start with your own state of mind as far as where you are and what's going on inside of you, so that you can begin to adjust that. So that when your kids see you, they won't see you as tired. They'll see you as involved. They won't see you as angry. They'll see you as enthusiastic. They won't see you as negative. They'll see you as positive. They won't see you as depressed. They'll see you as joyful. They won't see you as fearful. They'll see you as confident. And the list could go on. You will pass whatever state of mind that you're in on to your kids, and that is how they will always remember you.
Right. And then also likely to adopt that for themselves.
Exactly. So start with your own state of mind. And then, of course, dads, always point your family to the Lord Jesus.
Yes.
As the author of our faith. He's the one who has the answers to what God has in store for us now and in the future. So again, dads, for those who are just tuning in, maybe you just kind of came across the station, just here are some 10 things, dads, that every dad needs to bring to influence their family. And that is, number one, you are the influence. You influence them by changing their thoughts and actions. Number two, you're the one that declares and sets the standard for what is right in your home and in your family. You help your children release their trapped potential. Your kids, every one of them, have this amazing potential. You get to be the one who helps them to release whatever trapped potential is inside of them. Also, dads, you're to be emotionally invested. You need to understand. You need to know that your emotions, drive you in every area of life, in your business, in your home, in your church. But you are emotionally invested. And if you are emotionally invested, it's going to give you the energy you need. Next, spend time. Again, kids spell love, Time. That is so powerful and so important. Carve out that time. If that means getting up a little earlier, if that means going to bed a little later, if that means canceling that golf trip on Saturday so you can have time with your kids. And speaking of having time, have fun with your kids.
Yeah.
Again, as we said before, have a blast while you last, because they are going to see that and they're going to embrace that as you are embracing that fun with them. They're going to use that to build and grow on. Also, be aware of your state of mind. As we said just a moment ago, be aware of your state of mind. Is your state of mind, is it tired? Is it negative? Is it depressed? Dads always grow and learn. Again, that's what Sam Walton did, Tom Landry, many other great leaders that have written the books and have set the standard. Yep. But don't stop growing and learning. Use this podcast as a growing and learning opportunity. Coach your kids. Train them up. Spend the time. And even if you're a dad that has them only every other weekend or just 5 or 6 days a month even, you can still coach them and prepare them and encourage them. You don't have to be the Disneyland dad, but coach them. And then always, dads, point your sons, your daughters, your spouse to the Lord Jesus. And if you do that, dads, I think you'll be the leader that God has called you to be. They'll make a difference in the lives of your children, and they'll talk about this for generations yet to come.
Well, there you have it from the family, Answer Man dads. Great encouragement for you. As always, this is not a therapy session, but we do hope that you will seek the help and the counsel that you need to make changes that'll lead you to build a stronger, healthier, happier family.